So, my Uncle Jeff, right?
Yep.
Died before I was born.
Yep.
How old was he when he died?
He was 29.
29? And how old were you at the time?
So he was my oldest sibling, and I'm the youngest of three, so we were 8 years apart. So I was only 20 or 21 when he died. I remember I had turned 21 already. It really starts when he was, I think, 12. So I was only 4. My grandmother had retired and moved to Maui. And we all went there as a family to visit. And when we did, my brother Jeff cut his foot on some coral. They took him to the doctor in Hawaii. And the doctor said, oh yeah, he's fine. He doesn't have an infection. But when you get back home, I want you to go see your normal doctor because I want you to find out why he doesn't have any white blood cells. Figured out he had cancer called lymphoma. I think it's an immune system thing. Affects that you can't make any white blood cells. And he got treatment that would do different things to him, like make him lose his hair. And he had one drug that made him get really chubby and fat. But I think by the time he graduated high school, it was in remission. Everything was fine for a good number of years. And then when he was 27, he just kind of said, well, I don't feel good again. And they tested him and they go, yeah, the cancer's back. And at 29, he died. He had been married, but didn't have any kids. And when he got really sick again, he came back home and lived with us in our house that I grew up in. He had been married. Her name was Sana, and I think it was extremely difficult on her, obviously, but I reminded her a lot of him. So I don't think she ever wanted to be around me after that, really. They were living in the home that they bought in Union City, so in the East Bay somewhere here. After high school, he went to the California Culinary Academy in San Francisco, and I guess graduated from that and was a chef. So he worked as a chef at this club in Redwood City called the Sequoia Club. He would do like catering jobs on the side, and he would recruit me to work with him. So, again, just kind of wanting to do what my big brother did. So yeah, that's a nice positive memory for me. Every time I'm cooking something in the kitchen is I remember my brother.
Did you guys have a lot of the same interest?
Yeah, I mean, as being a little brother growing up with a big brother, you kind of went along with them. He liked boats, and so he always had a boat, and we'd go camping, because when you have a boat, you're usually camping. So we'd go camping and water skiing, and it was fun. Yeah. Being older than me, I really followed a lot of his musical tastes, and it was just 70s and 80s rock and roll. Him telling me about, he's like, oh my God, you have to see this band. He says, this band called Guns N' Roses. I'm like, that's a weird name for a band. What are you talking about? And of course, it's one of my favorite bands now. My brother really liked Pat Benatar. And she was coming around to Shoreline Amphitheater, and I was so excited to go see that concert with them. I bought them right away. Back then you had to wait in line for tickets at a record store and get there early enough to buy them, and I did. And I bought us 2 tickets. We were in the 4th row at Shoreline. and she ultimately canceled that concert and it never happened.
That's too bad.
So I don't think I ever actually went to a concert with him. My sister had just gotten married like a month or two before he died.
Was he able to attend the wedding, or was he too sick for that?
He was too sick for that. I think my sister had a moment with him and was in her dress on the day of the wedding, and she walked into the room and showed him. My mom and dad actually broke tradition in the family by naming their first son. So my dad was the first of 3 sons. His dad was the first son of the family. I don't know if they had more than one, but they alternated every generation in the names. So it was either James Rue Williams or James Stewart Williams, and it just alternated. First son of the first son. So they kept the Stewart but went with Jeffrey instead of James. So my brother's name, if they kept with family tradition, should have been James Rue Williams, not Jeffrey Stewart Williams.
Interesting. That's where my middle name comes from.
You're James, yeah. So somehow just got onto this feeling in the family that middle names were the important ones. So I think your mother chose Nicholas, and I said, well, as long as we can have, his middle name be James, and we thought Nicholas James sounded good together. At some point in his life, probably quite a long time actually, he was heavily using cocaine. He, at one point, when the family confronted him about it and said, you got to stop this stuff, he just said, look, my whole life has been about taking drugs, as a kid. So if he didn't feel good, they gave him a drug. Something else didn't feel good, they gave him another drug. And so it was really, he felt pretty natural for him when he was out of the hospital to just, if I want to feel good, I take the drug. It's part of his career too. There was a lot of, especially back then in the 80s, there was a lot of drug use in the restaurant industry. Probably still is. Yeah, he drank a lot. My father drank a lot too. He definitely had points in his life where he was drinking way too much, and that's the reason he's not with us too, is he drank and smoked for, decades, and ultimately he got cancer, but that was all self-inflicted,
Yeah, lung cancer, right?
He had lung cancer, liver cancer, throat cancer.
Oh, wow.
Everything that you could get from smoking too much and drinking too much.
Was he into cars too?
Definitely, yeah. That's another thing we really shared. He really liked Mustangs, so he probably had 2 or 3 different Mustangs. And he would he would do things that my parents wouldn't exactly like him to do. Like he went out and bought these big fat racing slicks for the rear of his Mustang, and he had them, of course, in the garage, and you stack them up in the garage. The 2 of them are like this tall. But he would go down to the Fremont drag strip and drag race in his Mustang. He took me there to watch the drag races on their closing weekend. It's not there anymore. So they announced that they were going to have a final drag weekend, and we were watching like jet cars and stuff go down the drag strip. My parents wouldn't let him get a motorcycle. He wanted a motorcycle. So he sold his car and bought a motorcycle in one day. Wow. And just drove home on the motorcycle. And at that point, they couldn't do anything about it because his car was already gone. We got a nice, red-tailed hawk feather, I think. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
hard to believe it's been 33 years. I used to think a lot about that, milestone of his age, because, it took me 8 years to get up to that age. And it wasn't really when I turned 29, but when I turned 30, I just realized, wow, I've lived longer than my brother.
Yeah.
That sucks. But also, I kind of remember the milestone when he would have been, I guess, 38, right? And I thought, wow, he's been gone longer than he was here.
Yeah.
That's kind of a hard thing to face, but you gotta use your time wisely and do the things that you want to do. Everything that you probably know about me and what I like to spend my time on has to do with that.
Yeah.
And that's why I ski 40 or 50 days every year, or mountain bike every weekend when I can. Go on hikes, work out, be healthy.
Yeah.
Just all because I've learned that lesson from him, from losing my dad. So I just keep doing all the things that I love to do. Remember my dad, giving us as the family, words of wisdom or whatever about it all, and he just said, well, your life has to go on. One of the things that, kind of gets to me is just, it must have been really crappy for him as a kid, when you're 12 years old and you got cancer.
Yeah.
And then you spend, 4 to 5 years of your childhood fighting cancer and being, on heavy medication that does stupid things to your body. That sucks.
Yeah.
He wrote my mom a note from the hospital, right? And so I think my dad and I went down there and without my mom, and so he said, hey, give a note to mom. And he was coming home. And so he said, the note was written to say, can we have tacos when I get home, Mom? Like, he ended the sentence with Mom. But she thought it said M-O-N for Monday. So he got home like on a, Saturday or Sunday, and he's like, why aren't we having tacos? I sent you a note saying I wanted to have tacos. And she goes, oh, I thought it said Monday. Poor kid. Well, you think about it, it's hard on your whole family.
Yeah.
My parents did a great job of, not making it my burden back when it was happening. But gosh, think about that as a parent. You've got one kid in the hospital, and you've got 2 kids, just trying to raise them as a normal life. That's gotta be tough.
Must have been tough when Auntie Laura got cancer again.
So that was really hard on her. Of course that was really scary with me too, because now I've had 2 people in the family who've had lymphoma. And so it just makes me, wonder when I'm gonna get it.
Yeah. It was the same kind of cancer they both got?
It was and it wasn't. Hers was not genetic. She got it because what they think was because of other drugs she was on that didn't cause it. So even though it was the same, I've never taken the time to memorize what the differences are between the different types of lymphoma, but there's Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's, and I don't remember which was which and who had what, but they were different, even though they were the same by name.
Yeah.
But of course that scared Laura like crazy. It obviously scared me because I know what happens to people who have lymphoma, and I at some point really thought that she had a very limited amount of time left, but she got treatment and has been better for quite a while. But yeah, all those memories come back when you hear that again. And the person that I really feel the worst for is my mom, because she's just gone through it over and over. Somehow she's a very strong person through it all. But I guess I've gone through it all too, as much as she has. Oh, here's something I can remember is, I don't know if this still exists or not, but my aunt who lived in Texas was an artist, and there's a painting in our house that she's done. Actually, there's a couple of them. Brooke has some in her room. But she wrote a poem about him, or something like that. Maybe a little short story, the only thing I remember from it was, I think the title of it was Cotton Hair and Knobby Knees, because he had very white blonde hair and he was tall and skinny. So
yeah,
her poem about him was Cotton Hair and Knobby Knees. We just passed what would have been his birthday again. He was born on April 30th.
April 30th?
Yeah. And 61, I think? 1961? Yeah. So he would have been 62. It's very, very hard to imagine him being 62 years old, not ever having seen him, past his young adult stage, I guess, 29. That's the end of the trail.